Okay, picking up with where I left off. Um, let's get back into it. Here we go. So instead of this being a Tao in the middle of a meditation chamber, it is going to be a a human, and I need a human name that is less Tao sounding. So how about we go with um, Nelly? No. Nell sat in her meditation chamber. Sat at the center of her meditation chamber. The human psycher, not felt. That's filtering. A wave of sickness. A wave of sickness washed over the human psycher. The pale skinned human psycher. What? The wave of sickness that had washed over the pale skinned human psycher earlier in the day. No. A wave of sickness had washed over the pale skinned human psycher earlier in the day. And she needed to contemplate what it meant. But meditation only made the darkness grow. That's a long sentence. She needed to contemplate, not glow, what it meant, but meditation only made the darkness grow. There was no clarity to be found, only a pressure against her mind, a horrible sinking in her gut, warning her of what? Of what? She tried tried pushing her mental senses, mental senses toward the horrible sensation, but the more she focused, focused in that direction, her attention is redundant. Focused in that direction, the more the dread, the more, but the more she focused in that direction, the greater the dread grew. Something was coming. Some horrible darkness was headed toward their peaceful planet. How? Who could possibly know of this out of the way place? What could they want? There were no warriors here, no great stores of supplies. The world was still in its infancy. Nell. Let's do this. Control F. Find. NEA. Ole. Replace with Nell. Okay, there we go. Nell. Go back to the first instance. Okay, first instance. There we are. No, okay. Something was coming. Some horrible darkness was headed toward their peaceful. Was headed to their tranquil planet. Who could possibly know of this out-of-the-way place? What could they want? There were no warriors here, no great stores of supplies. The world was still in its infancy. Nell tore out of her room and down a long, smooth hole. Light beams. Okay. Light beams hummed to life along her path with each step. With each step, she opened a channel and said, Ruvasa, Ruvasa, are you awake? Something is coming. We must get we must get everyone into hiding. The earth cast opened his eyes and rolled to an elbow. Nell? He yawned. He asked through a yawn. What time was it? Almost sundown? He was always early to bed and woke before the sun rose. So he could start. So doesn't matter. That's obvious. Before the others, he'd been asleep for less than half an hour and was disoriented and drowsy. I do not know what's coming, but it is a darkness. But I feel a darkness unlike anything I've ever experienced. It is monstrous and twisted and dark, and it is hungry, so very hungry. It pains my very soul to aim to point my mind toward it for longer than a moment. The Tyranids? Are you telling me there's a swarm of... No. No. Not that kind of hunger. This is malevolent and conscious. It thinks and plots, and I can feel it watching us. It thinks and plots. And it's watching us. She pulled her shoulders together and snapped her head around to look behind herself, almost convinced something would be lurking in the shadows. And jerked her head around to look behind herself, almost convinced something would be lurking in the shadows. I'm dressing. I'll meet you in the common room hall in 5 minutes. Please hurry, Nell said, with far more worry bleeding into her voice than she would ever have aloud if her mind wasn't being assaulted. Pools of ink were blotting out clear thought. Okay, that's fine. Had that patch of shadow just moved? A chain-bound fist turning and holding a sweeping blade in the shape of a talon? No, she told herself, of course not. And yet, even as she chided her fears, she stomped toward the spot along the wall to activate the motion light. The patch of darkness faded, but not quite as fast as Nell would have liked. She continued down the hall, forcing the thoughts aside. Even still, she couldn't help herself from looking back once more before she took the next turn. The shadows were back and darker than they should have been. Yeah, that's right. Okay, moving along. Navasali tapped the armored chest of Golek, the leader of First Squad. Brothers, in but a few moments we shall set upon a prey so perfect for the taking it would be a sin to do otherwise. Sin? Sin? Would he say sin? It would be... so perfect for the taking, there practically begging for it. Below us, humans and Tau share the same streets, the same Sud. They sit at the same tables. Their children play with each other. The gathered brethren twitched at their commander's words. It took a great twitched, and hissed and growled. Their boots scraped against the rusted iron floor. Their commander's words filled them. This is kind of telling, but I already showed you what they're doing, so yeah. I showed you a little bit. The gathered brethren twitched and hissed and growled. Their boots scraped against the rusted iron floor. Their commander's words filled them with abject loathing. It took a great deal to make a Night Lord flinch. But what is that? Is it 2 words? Night 140k Night Lord? Is it 2 words? It is 2 words, okay. Night Lords flinch, but what Navisality was describing was sickening beyond imagination. Humans and Tau, the brothers were all clad in blue, so dark it drank the room's already minimal light. Their haunting shadows flickered against the shadows. Wait, they're haunting. Wait, hang on. Shapes flickering against the shadows. Not against, amongst the shadows. How? Devol asked, leader of third and fourth Talon. The Raptor veteran shook his head, unable to comprehend such a thing. The others in the room looked toward the Raptor, who was hunched on all fours, who asked, his voice rising from his low spot on the ground. Leader of third and fourth, the Raptor veteran shook his head, unable to comprehend such a thing. The others in the room looked toward the Raptor, who was hunched on all fours. I don't know. Don't know, Navasali said. I've heard of this sort of union before, but only in hushed whispers. I dismissed them as rumors and sick jokes. I thought maybe it had happened once. Possibly. There are some humans so pathetic I can almost understand it, but I've heard this kind of pairing has happened hundreds of times. Wait a second. If he just said, I heard this sort of union before, but only in hushed whispers, but I've heard of this kind of thing happening hundreds of times. Yeah, we're going to cut that out. That doesn't make sense. That undoes what I just said above. I can almost understand, but possibly. There are some humans so pathetic, I can almost understand it. From what Gazed tells me, this planet was a primitive world little more than a year ago. The humans were tribal and lived in mud and grass huts. They knew absolutely nothing of the wider galaxy until these blue-skinned Xenos freaks came and tricked them into submission. Okay, I'm going to pause there. And that's just a short one. My wife is home, so I got to go. I'll send this one off, and I'll do another one here soon. Yeah, talk soon. What's wrong with me?